Powerful and provocative. Prophetic and practical.
Have you ever found yourself?
Are you dating for that person?
Informative and
I feel
inspirational.
every bit of that. Like, I'm not trying to waste my
How
time.
you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do. Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager.
Intellectual Stew with James Kirkland. Intellectual Stew. Intellectual Stew. Intellectual Stew. Intellectual Stew. Intellectual Stew with James Kirkland. Intellectual Stew. Intellectual Stew.
Tap in, let's get ready to tap in.
Intellectual Stew. Intellectual Stew with James Kirkland.
Come on, let's get out the
Intellectual Stew.
I have a question. Come on in.
Intellectual Stew. Intellectual Stew. Intellectual Stew. James Kirkland.
Y'all were looking at that.
Intellectual stew.
Share this in the group. Let people know we're on.
Intellectual stew.
All right, what's up? What it do? Time for another episode of the Intellectual Stew with yours truly, James Kirkland. I have put the phone number up. I'm looking for the link now so I can put it in the chat and hopefully pin it. So if anybody wants to jump in on tonight's discussion, my mic is always open as long as you are bringing substantive information. I'd love for you to chime in and talk. Can y'all hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. If you can't hear me, let me know so I can fix that. Can you hear me? Yeah, so that's what we're looking at tonight. We're ready to get started here in just a moment. Okay, I'm trying to pin this in the group. What's up, Zontarius? But yeah, tonight we're going to talk about different attachment styles. And I want y'all to tap in on this because it really will help us. Okay, what's up, Nicole? How you doing? Appreciate you. We're going to talk about different attachment styles tonight, and it'll help us understand how we relate as adults by understanding how we learn to relate as children. So I want to get into this conversation tonight, but before I do that, let me hold on. I'm trying to share this thread. So if anybody else, so we can get some more people in on this conversation, because I don't want to have to start over once I get started. Well, I'm not going to start over once I get started. But I want us to get the context of what we're saying. So go ahead and share this and let's get some people on. Like I said, we're going to talk about these different attachment styles as it relates to relationships. Hey, what's up, Charlotte? How are you doing? I missed church on yesterday because I was out of town. Well, I didn't miss it where I was, but I missed it here. So I'm texting. I'm sorry, y'all. But I'm going to get started in just a moment because I found this interesting. I started something that I said I would never do, and I didn't think I needed it. But as I'm getting older and I'm faced with more challenges and different things, sometimes you do need to go and talk with somebody, right? And just have a good conversation with an individual who is non-biased, just a neutral party, just a neutral party that you can relate to and that can help you guide you through some of your thoughts, right? So I started this journey and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. But today we had a term come up called attachment styles, and she challenged me to look up some of the different attachment styles because we're going through how I relate to different people because I'm trying to become a better version of myself. And in order to become a better version of myself, I have to become better at relationships. And I'm learning that haven't been very good at relationships, not in totality, right? So part of my mission as I seek to continue on this path towards better, then that means as I grow, I have to address certain deficiencies in my life. You hear me oftentimes talk about the mirror, right? You look in the mirror, and the mirror is a good place to look when it's time to make necessary adjustments. And so if you have certain deficiencies in your life, it's only wise once you recognize those deficiencies to start to tend to those areas areas of need, if you will. So if I'm having trouble in relationships, then what I have to do is I have to kind of go explore where all of that started, right? And so that's where I am. And so today, when she brought up this whole issue of attachment styles, it kind of hit me in a whole different way, right? because when you start thinking about what the definition of an attachment style is, an attachment is an act of attaching, or the state of being attached, a feeling that binds one to a person, a thing, a cause, an ideal, or the like, devotion, regard. So attachment describes the way people form relationships and how they interact and behave in those relationships. So our our attachment style is formed during early childhood by the way we interact with our parents or primary caregivers. Now, I think this is the challenge. I think so many times we make the mistake of assuming that people know what we know, or we make a mistake of assuming that people have had the same experiences that we've had. I never will forget. I was looking on Facebook a long time ago, and I saw a friend of mine, male friend of mine. He said, "First thing your mama taught you is when you're cooking, when you get through, you clean out the sink, you put bleach in the sink, and you do this." And I started thinking, I said, my mama never taught me that. And that doesn't mean my mom wasn't clean. My mom just might have done it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying, but reality is that some people might clean differently, right? Because we all have different cultures. Cultures are created. Charlotte, whatever culture that's in your house might have been different in my house, right? We might have used Jiffy cornbread. I'm not saying we did. Mama, don't be offended if I say we did. But we might have used Jiffy cornbread. Y'all might have made it from scratch. Somebody else might have made hot water cornbread. Somebody else, whatever. Somebody else might have made muffins. But we all create and we learn culture based on the orientation that we had growing up. Does that make sense? And then, like I said, as I'm talking tonight, if any of you all want to jump in and add to this conversation, the phone number is there, and I think I put the link in the chat somewhere. Yeah, there it is. I put the link in the chat, so it's available, right? So attachment describes how we form relationships, the way we interacted with our primary caregiver, the way we interacted with our parents, the way we interacted with those who had authority in our lives in our younger years. That's how we end up forming our relationships as we get older. So understanding that we are all products of orientation, right? We all, we didn't just wake up one day and we're 20, 30, 40 years old. We had to go through, one day, and then 1 week, and then a month, and then a year. And, through progression, we grew up, and through orientation, we're all products of orientation. So it helps to understand our attachment style. Okay, I got Nicole. Let me see. Nicole wants to jump in and help. Let me see what she got for me. All right. Hey, Nicole, how you doing? Unmute yourself if you're there. Let me unmute you. Are you there now?
Hello.
Hey, Nicole, how you doing?
I'm good. I was just trying to use the I believe Yard Stream or StreamYard.
StreamYard. You're on. Everybody hear you now. You live right now.
I didn't know.
Say what you're gonna say. Say what you're gonna say. You on here now.
I wasn't gonna say anything yet. I was just trying to use another mechanism besides Facebook, hoping it'll stay up while I minimize it. But I can't speak on it. I can't say this about attachment styles though. It's very wise to learn what yours are. About 2 years ago, I started looking into mine, and I learned that I was, and I believe it's called anxious something, some with a P, preoccupied, anxious, or something like that. But it primarily, that attachment style had to do with I saw that there was issues with the abandonment that I felt from my father. And I still deal with that. So you're right in that how we're brought up and things, trauma that we face, and ways that we go about coping or whatnot in our childhood, it enters into the adulthood, and you'll start, if you just look back, do some hindsight reflecting, you'll see how that stuff plays out, and it's real, right? If you It's all about being aware. One of my core beliefs and principles and values that I've decided that I want to hold tight to is self-awareness. And so being able to know what your issues are and how you go about forming relationships with people, not just, and I found this doesn't actually just affect me in romantic relationship. This
Absolutely.
affects me in jobs,
Mm,
in a lot of other ways outside of romance.
absolutely.
So a lot of people be surprised how a lot of things play out in our lives, and they're attached to different components and areas of our lives. So
That's good stuff. I appreciate you. And I
um
appreciate you for doing the work to figure out what your attachment style, and then to be transparent enough to say that you can see how some issues would affect you now from your childhood. That's good. And I would hope, and that's why I do the show, Nicole, because other people can relate to this as well. You know what I'm saying? And everybody's not having these conversations. You know what I'm
oh
saying?
yeah.
Everybody want to talk about what's negative in the world and all these types of things. But how do we get to the root cause of what our current issues are, right? You know what I'm saying? You know,
Yeah.
I can cut a leaf off because the leaf has turned brown, but what about the root?
Yeah.
And what about the branch? And did it need pruning? You know what I'm saying? Sometimes
Hmm.
we have to go through a pruning process. Me personally, right now, I'm going through a pruning process. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? I'm as I grow. I never understood that till I was back when I was well, I ain't gonna say I knew a woman. Let me just say it like that. A woman
Hmm.
who went to the beautician,
Hmm.
and she before she went, she she told me that she wanted to let her hair grow. But when she came back, her hair was shorter than it was prior to going to the beautician. And she told me the reason she had to do that was because she had dead ends.
Yeah. Had to cut the
So
dead
in
ends.
order for in
Mm-hmm.
order for something to grow, something had to die. And so
Oh yeah.
they wasn't cut off those dead ends. Then her hair experienced new growth. Perhaps there, I don't know who I'm talking to, and I know I'm talking to myself. That's why I like looking in the mirror, because I'm like David. I'll encourage myself in the Lord. But
Amen.
I've learned that as I go to a new level, that there are certain aspects of me and things around me that have to die, that have to fall off so that I can go to the next level. So when I'm talking to my therapist today and she starts to mention these attachment styles, right? And I start looking down my 51 years of living and I say, whoa,
Hmm.
okay. Wow. You know what I'm saying? So that's good stuff. That's good stuff. I ain't gonna hold you, Nicole. Let me get back into my little lesson. But if anybody else wants to call, you have anything else you want to say?
No, I just agree with you said as far as the cutoff. I found that a lot of people say they want to change, but with change comes oftentimes pain. It comes
Ooh,
having to really face some things about ourselves and a willingness to face it, you know.
Father,
And I think a lot of people aren't willing because it's not easy and it is
it's not.
uncomfortable. But it made me think about surgery. You know, sometimes we having pains and we're dealing with things in life, and we go and we have surgery. People that have the knee surgery. I have a knee issue going on now. It doesn't require surgery, but I know people have had replacement of their knees. That is a
Mhm.
very tedious and painful rehab that takes place after that surgery, but the joy that comes when you can navigate and get through that rehab and actually start walking without the pain. And that's how life is. That's how life is with us mentally in our psyche, right? And having to
Yeah,
understand our personalities and the way we vibe, and being able to
it's good stuff.
communicate that with others too, and knowing what you need and how you perceive things can help you better relate with others. So you're doing a good job here. So thank you so much for calling
Hey,
attention to these attachment styles.
but you just jogged my memory on something, so I'm gonna keep you here another minute or two at least, because you
Okay.
said after your knee, you had to go through a real rehabilitation process and all those things, and that's and notice what you didn't do. You had a choice, believe it or not. Now I know your only choice logically was to go through the rehabilitation process, right? But unfortunately, in relationships, especially romantic, what's up, Coy? Especially in romantic relationships, we have two choices. We either amputate or rehabilitate.
Come on now.
And so
Right.
because rehabilitation requires so much more work, we'd rather amputate. But I've never seen an amputee who doesn't have a limp.
Come
And
on.
so when we amputate, we find ourselves limping. That's a whole nother subject. But let me I appreciate you. Let me jump back into my little lesson. I don't want to be on here 2 or
All
3
right.
hours.
No
But
problem.
listen, if something else comes up and you have something else you want to say, the link is right there. Feel free to jump in. The phone number's right there, and we'll keep it moving. Okay. I appreciate you, Nicole. All right. So Miss Milton said Nicole is correct. It's not so much about the attachment, but the awareness of the attachment. Coy said greetings. Okay. So here we go. Let's talk about these attachment styles. Attachment styles are characterized by your behavior within a relationship. Watch this, especially when the relationship is threatened. It's characterized by your behavior in the relationship, especially when the relationship is when you start to act out because you're afraid that something is going to challenge you in that relationship. Now, John Bowlby, a researcher, he's credited with as being the creator of attachment theory. This is how he described attachment. He said it's a lasting psychological connectedness between human beings. Hear that. It's a lasting psychological connectedness between human beings. He believed that forming attachment was also a part of human survival. And these early childhood experiences shape development and behavior later in life. So what I'm saying is, so how you're, those coming in, what you're exposed to as a child, your initial caregiver, your parents, your grandmother, whoever raised you, they are shaping your attachment style for the future. All right. Let me see what Charlotte said. All right. So I'll get to you in a minute on that with Charlotte. So getting back to what I was saying. So according to this theory, the way hold on, let me Denise Fournier said something too. Let me put her statement up now. Denise Fournier is the adjunct psychology professor at Nova Southeastern University in Florida. But this is what she said. She said, according to the theory, the way we bonded with the significant attachment figures, aka our parents, in early life, shape and predicts how we will bond in our later relationships, especially with our romantic partners. Okay, so talking about orientation, talking about as children. What's up, Dawood? Dawood, we're talking about attachment styles tonight. We're going a little bit in a different direction. We're going, we want to get a better understanding of ourselves. So we're talking about attachment styles. So let me give y'all a couple of facts about attachment styles. Okay. Number one, attachment styles show up as patterns. They're patterns. And these patterns of behavior and interaction that develop in the earliest emotional bonds with caregivers, usually during infancy, they can describe how children and parents interact or attachment patterns in relationships. So what happens is when you start, for instance, if an infant, right? Every time the infant cries, then this person comes in the room with a bottle. It might be a him, it might be a her, but this person comes in the room with a bottle, and it might come in with a little song. And then every time the person comes in, they pick me up and they put me in their lap, and and then they might hold me and cradle me and rock me till I fall asleep, and all these types of things. At that point, that child is forming a bond through a pattern, because they see this person keep showing up. If you're in a relationship with somebody and that person keeps showing up every time you need them, you're developing a pattern with that individual. Does that make sense? If a person doesn't show up, like Nicole had I hear a lot. I don't know Nicole's situation, but I've heard a lot of people who have complained about an absentee father growing up, or absentee parent. And so, and I mean, I could say that there were times that I experienced something similar, that I would get phone calls and promises, and the promises were broken. That's a pattern. And so after a while, when a person has been lied to for so long, and that's the pattern, then guess what? That shows up in adulthood. And now they don't believe anything that anybody else tells them, right? Because these attachment styles, they're patterns. They end up showing patterns. But not only do they show patterns, but a lot of them are also based on nonverbal communication. A lot of them are based on that nonverbal communication. Like, for instance, the infant communicates their need through crying, cooing, pointing, smiling, and the caregiver responds. Does that make sense? The child cries, caregiver responds. Before a child's able to talk, the child may point, like, what you want? Child, even dogs. I mean, I got a little dog, Chloe. Chloe, it was so funny sometimes when it gets right around the right time, about 8:15, 8:30 in the morning. If I hadn't came out there to check on her, if my door is open, she gonna come stick her head in the door right quick and look at me like, hey dog, can we go on and get this walk in? And she can't talk, but she communicates. And that's the same thing we do as adults, but we learned it as children. Our attachment styles are based, some of them are based on nonverbal communication. But then there's another thing. Some of our attachment styles, they can vary in security. And this is what Nicole was starting to get into a few minutes ago. When I talk about this form, this is attachment style. Here it is. They vary in level of security, because with secure attachments being the best for children's development, psychologists tend to believe that there are four main attachment styles. Mary Ainsworth, she did a study and concluded there were three main attachment styles, and then psychologists determined that there was a fourth attachment style. Let me tell you what attachment styles do. Attachment styles shape the way we view, first of all, ourselves. Secondly, they view the way we shape the way we view others, and then they also shape the way we attach or connect with others. Let me say that again. Our attachment styles, they shape the way we view ourselves, how we view others, and then they shape the way we attach or the way we view our attachment or view our connection to others. So here's the first attachment style. The first attachment style, some of these, depending on how you do your research, some of these words might vary a little bit, but they're pretty close to the same. All right. So if y'all talk back to me and y'all want to make this a discussion, like I said, we'll go a little deeper. Otherwise, I'm gonna give this little lesson and then we're gonna move on. But I'm joking a little bit. All right. So here is the first attachment style. The first attachment style is the secure attachment style. Now, with the secure attachment style, those with this style are able to build healthy, long-term relationships, because these people are secure. Okay. Thank you, Ellen Thomas. I appreciate you. Somebody sent me a great article about attachment styles. So appreciate you for that. I wish I had gotten it before. And listen, the phone number is there. If you want to call in, share some information, feel free to do so. But here it is. Secure attachment. Those that have this style. Now, this is, first of all, let me say this. This is the style that most people want. Okay. That's up, Viola. We want to feel secure in our relationships and the way we attach to other people. In other words, whoever my caregiver was, if that caregiver was one who was trusting, who was one who I could call on when I needed, one who responded and attended to my needs, didn't abandon me, any of those things, that becomes what we call a secure attachment. Now, those that are on my page, if you haven't followed my page, what's the name of my page? Stu Nation, the followers of the Intellectual Stu podcast. Go in there or go on my personal page, and there's an attachment style quiz. It's only about 15 questions. And if you want to jump off right quick and go take it, do that. Go to my page right quick. It's 15 questions. It's not even that hard. You can't even flunk it. It's an easy test. Take the test, and you'll learn what your attachment style is and see if you agree with what we're talking about tonight. So the healthiest one is secure attachment. The secure attachment. Those with this style are able to build healthy, long-term relationships. These, when they have this style, this leads to good self-esteem and the ability to enjoy close relationships, seek social support, and share feelings with others. Those that have this style had someone in their lives to whom they could turn that was trustworthy. They had someone that when they went out into the world and faced adversity, they had someone to whom they could turn when they came back home. That's a good place to be. Not someone who is going to say, see, that's what I told you. Or someone that said, I got mine, you got to get yours. People that just want to browbeat you all the time. That doesn't lead to a secure attachment, right? That leads to some other things. Children who developed this attachment style had parents or primary caregivers who were more attentive to their needs. These people felt safe. They felt loved. They felt understood. Securely attached children sought comfort from their parents or caregiver when scared and preferred the comfort of this adult to strangers. Research suggests that securely attached children are more empathetic as they get older. So what do y'all think about that? Is that where you were? Did you have someone in your life, your primary caregiver, did they provide a safe space for you growing up? Could you go to them with anything? And even if it was something that was bad, even if it was something that that could potentially get them in trouble, did you feel comfortable going? And y'all talk back to me on this one for a little bit. Did you feel comfortable going to that individual, or did you start to have to find solace other places? Because sometimes, rather than if a person doesn't have that caregiver or doesn't have that space to be vulnerable, or if they find themselves trying to be vulnerable and then all of a sudden they're attacked or they're judged or they're misjudged for trying to be vulnerable to that person, then it's going to affect whether you go back and as we talked earlier, you're creating that pattern, right? For instance, if I know I'm going to come to you with some information, and when I come to you, then there 9 times out of 10, I'm probably going to get spanked, or I'm going to get yelled at, or I'm going to get judged, then I might swallow that. I might internalize that. But little do I know, while I'm internalizing that, I'm creating a behavior pattern that's not going to just show up when I'm 6, but it's going to show up when I'm 16. And then if I don't deal with it, it's going to show up when I'm 26. And if I still don't deal with it, it's still going to show up when I get 36, right? And I need to deal with it as an infant, or as I get older. Once, as Nicole said, once I recognize that pattern, then I deal with that pattern. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Is there anyone who else in the chat can relate to the secure? And if you don't have that answer, I see some of y'all might have jumped off to go take the quiz right quick. Go ahead and do that. But that's the first attachment style. We attach based on how we view others, how we view ourselves, and how we view the attachment. And if I'm secure within myself because someone has made me feel secure, do Are you familiar with the term enculturation? Many of us, as we grow up, we're enculturated by the environment that we grew up in, right? Though, I mean, those are the things that play into our psyches. I mean, the music we listen to, I mean, the education we're exposed to, the vacations that we took, I mean, the church, all those things play into who we are. The church we didn't go to, whatever we believe, our belief system, our worldview, all those things are shaping as we grow. And when we have, that's why I love that term, good soil. When you got certain kind of soils just produce really good fruit, and a secure attachment will produce a very secure person. And then that shows up in adulthood. So if you have someone who's dealing with trust issues, if you have someone who is very argumentative, that doesn't know how to relate, you got someone that can't handle conflict, all those types of things, then that person might not have been exposed or had a secure attachment while they were growing up. Does that make sense? Y'all tell me if any of this is making sense. I know if any of this is making sense tonight. All right. So the first attachment style we discussed was the secure. Okay, let me see what A.R. Milton said. She said, I think people with secure attachment likely did not have a dysfunctional family early on during development. They likely had a solid foundation and loving environment early on. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if we view that, you know, that I used to work in the school system a long time ago. Yeah, it is easy. You pass it, Viola? I'm joking. But it's tough. Let me just talk about me. I used to feel so bad as a parent, because, you know, as parents, you know, y'all know y'all are super parents. I'm James. I'm your friend. I'm just gonna tell you the truth. Parenting is on the job training, and sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we get it wrong, right? And sometimes I got it wrong, no doubt about it. You know, because it's on the job training, and there were times that, and Trey would get the blunt of it because Trey's the oldest. I made most of my mistakes with him. So I mean, think about it. You're yelling at a child first thing in the morning. 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30. They got to go to school. You done yelled at them, hollered at them, told them what they haven't done, told them what you're gonna do to them later when they get home. All these types of things. Well, I didn't do those because I didn't spank my children like that. But you did all those things, and then all of a sudden you expect them to go to school and have a good day. I heard somebody tell me about a young boy that came to school one day, and he was having a bad day. He was having a bad day, and a teacher walked in the room with him, somebody who loved him, because it's hard to relate to somebody you don't love, you don't understand, or you don't care about. And she asked him what's wrong with him, and she said that boy told her that before he went to school that morning, his mother told him that she wished he was never born. Do you think that's a loving environment? Do you think that's a solid foundation to raise a child? I mean, even that video surfaced a few years ago. I got in trouble for showing that video where that woman walked in the cafeteria and spanked her son. She beat the brakes off that little boy in front of everybody. I mean, the teachers and everything. And if she whooped him like that in public, how's she whooping him at home? And I feel so sorry for some of these children that have to be raised by dysfunctional, I ain't gonna say dysfunctional parents, but even though I'm thinking, and I really did just say it, but I'm gonna try to be a little more political and say it in a different way. I hate it. I grieve for children who have to be raised in dysfunctional environments, right? Because they don't get the secure attachment, and the things they feel now, they're gonna feel it as they get older. They're going to relate. You know, I can plant a seed. We can go out. If you go outside and look at that big oak tree or that maple tree that you see, and it's, 20, 30 feet tall, that seed wasn't planted yesterday. That seed was planted 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And you're seeing the fruit of a seed that was planted years ago. Some of the stuff that we see in our relationships is not what happened yesterday. It's what mommy did as a little to him as a little boy, or what daddy didn't do to her as a little girl. And because of that, we don't have a secure attachment. And so when it's not the secure attachment, then the second thing that we might have, okay, the second attachment we might have, oops, oh, let me put my notes back up. Hit that wrong button. You know how you do that? The second attachment we might have is called the anxious. That's the one you were talking about earlier, Nicole. The anxious or ambivalent attachment. Now, a person who has, oh, I got to put my thing up. A person who has the anxious or ambivalent attachment, they're a little bit different. They operate from a platform of insecurity. That's the phone number for those that want to call in. They operate from a platform of insecurity. Let me tell you about them. Children who are ambivalently attached are typically, watch this. I want you to hear this part right here. Children who are ambivalently attached are typically suspicious of strangers and distressed when separated from a caregiver. But unlike securely attached children, those with anxious or ambivalent attachment don't seem to be comforted, here it is, by the parent or a caregiver's return, and they might even refuse comfort. Let me say that again, because I want you to understand what I just said. Children who have the anxious or ambivalent attachment, they usually operate from a platform of insecurity, and they're typically suspicious of strangers and distressed when separated from a caregiver. But the difference is, these are babies. This is how you did it, because we're talking about infants now. We're not talking about as adults. So, but when the parent comes back or the caregiver comes back, typically the child will stop crying, right? But not this child. One who has an anxious or ambivalent attachment, when the parent or the caregiver comes back, then they might or might not be happy to see the parent come back. That would be a sad state. Think about it. You drop your child off at the daycare. Now, when I used to walk in daycare with Trey and Kennedy and Mackenzie, oh, they'd take off running, put their arm around my waist, grab their book bag, ready to go home, because they ready to leave school and go home. But when you got a child that say, mommy's here, but that child rather stay in there and play, or rather stay in there with other people, or stay with the teacher, and doesn't want to go home, then the first question that probably is going to ask is, well, why that child don't want to go home? What's the issue with that child? What are they doing to that baby to make that baby not comfortable? Those are some of the things, questions that would be asked when it comes to someone with an anxious or ambivalent attachment. So let's look at this. Anxious ambivalent. It's a type of insecure attachment. Those with this style tend to be wary of getting close to others and worry, here it is, whether a romantic partner loves you or not. So see how that leaks over from infancy into adulthood? Because as an infant, those with this style, they're typically suspicious of strangers and most adults. And because they have problems with attachment, they become insecure. And even when the caregiver returns, it's not a guarantee that they're going to be comforted. That's a stark contrast to someone with a secure attachment. Because that person is secure, they're not worried about if this person loves me. They recognize what real love is. They know how to respond to real love. A lot of people that don't recognize it, some people don't even think it exists. It's become so rough out here. It's so bad out here now. Some people doubt whether or not real love exists. A person could be telling you love them over and over and over again, but they don't necessarily, if they're like, I don't see it. I don't believe it. Insecure. Yeah. So what's the next? Oh yeah. Now this anxious, those with this, I left this part out. Those with the anxious or ambivalent attachment, it's not easy when relationships, for them, it's not easy when relationships end. Yeah. They find it especially difficult. But it also confirms their fears because they were already insecure. They were too busy saying, listen, you don't love me. They tend to feel unworthy of love and don't recognize it when it happens. You know anybody like that? Always worry whether somebody loves them or not. They'll say actions speak louder than words. But even when you show them actions, they still say, I need to hear it. Let me see. A person with anxious ambivalence. Let me see. Ms. Milton said a person with anxious ambivalent attachment style has insecurities that can linger for decades, even if these issues are not resolved. Absolutely. All of these, I mean, these attachment styles, that's why they are showing up in our adult lives. Because, like you said earlier, and like Nicole said, because some of us just weren't aware. And we thought we were going on as normal. But can I tell you that dysfunction can become your normal? If you operate only in dysfunction, then dysfunction has become your new normal. Point blank. If you raise a child in a dysfunctional household, they'll think that's normal. I used the story, I think, last week about Jawanza Kunjufu. Jawanza Kunjufu told the story about a little boy named Johnny. Johnny would go to school and he was in kindergarten, but Johnny wouldn't sit down, couldn't sit down. Teacher say, sit down, Johnny, get back up. Teacher say, sit down, get back up. So the teacher goes to the principal goes to the counselor. Counselor says, I'm going to go to Johnny's house. I got to find out why little Johnny won't sit down. So she knocks on the door. When Johnny's young mother comes to the door and moves out the way, looks in the living room, and it's only one chair. And the chair is sitting in front of a TV that's on a crate. And grandmama's sitting in the chair. Johnny didn't sit down because Johnny didn't have anywhere to sit at home. And so if you don't understand a child, or take the time to understand a person, then you're not going to understand why they feel or why they act the way they act. Everything starts with orientation. It starts with a seed that was planted. So when Miss Milton says that these things can linger, that's key word, linger, but you can lingering it can be alleviated if you recognize the pattern. What you say, Miss Milton? I met with someone like this. It's consistent hand holding, reassurance, and it's exhausting. Yeah, because they're insecure. You're always having to reassure them, or reconfirm, or all these types of things. It can be tough if that person never learns that that's their issue and starts to work on their issues. I'm telling you all, this therapy thing, I'm sold. I get it. I'm glad I got insurance. But it's definitely a good place to go in. When look, only 3 people have reacted, and I see about at least 10 people in the room. Can y'all like or love or share this post, please? So I got about probably 15, 20 more minutes. Maybe I think I got 2 more attachment styles to go through. And then we'll make our way through it. But if you would like it, share the thread. Maybe some more people can get some good information off of this as well. Because if we want to be better in relationships, we're gonna have to do better at understanding ourselves. Let me tell you something. All of our stuff stinks. I know some of y'all say, no, don't. I eat this. I got a good diet. I don't care what you say. All of us go through something at some point in life. All of us have been through something, right? All of us, and as I said last week, all of those of us who are in relationships and aren't in relationships anymore, to a degree, we were in a failed relationship, right? So we're under construction, and that's okay, because that's why we're here. That's why we're having these conversations, because we're trying to fix and become better versions of ourselves. So if understanding our attachment style, especially if it's dysfunctional, if that helps us become a better version of ourselves, why not? Let's share this information, okay? So we've talked about 2 attachment styles already. We've talked about the secure attachment, and we've talked about the anxious and ambivalent one. But here's another one that a lot of us probably excel in, because of what we talked about earlier. Because what happens when we're faced with adversity, rather than rehabilitate, a lot of us would rather amputate. We would rather than do the work, the push-ups, the sit-ups, the calisthenics, everything it takes to get stronger, let's just cut this thing. Let's cut this thing off. Let's get a prosthetic limb. It's stable enough. I got a limp, but it's stable enough. So I'm just going to do that. When we do that, we're operating in what we call the avoidant attachment. Avoidant attachment, avoidant attachment, avoidant attachment, because we would rather amputate than rehabilitate. We'd rather not put in the work. It takes too much effort to put in work. I don't want to go through that. I'm lazy. I ain't gonna lie, in PE, yeah, I used to be in PE before I got in athletics, but I used to hate to run the mile. For what? What we running for? Just in circles over and over again? I might be better at cross country, but I just didn't like just running the mile over and over again. So I would try to avoid it. I didn't want to dress out. I pull out my asthma pump. No, I'm joking about that part. I didn't get asthma until I got older. But avoid those with avoidant attachment. They're marked by challenges with intimacy and close relationships. They're marked by challenges with intimacy and close relationships. Now, we're talking about how things show up in our adulthood, but to understand how they show up in our adulthood, we tackle it in the infancy. Children with an avoidant attachment may have had caregivers, here it is, who were not emotionally available. These might have been what you call latchkey kids. Now hold on. Let me put this caveat out there. That doesn't mean a latchkey kid couldn't have a secure attachment. Okay? I was a latchkey kid a lot of years. I don't ever remember going to daycare or after school programming and those things. We got off the bus, so I rode my bike home. I got a key and I went in the house and I waited till my parents came home. Okay? But I had loving parents and all those things as well. So, but those that have the avoidant attachment, they may have been left to take care of themselves because they could not rely on a parent or guardian. So these type of children, they might avoid parents or caregivers and not have a preference between a caregiver and a stranger. It's dangerous when a child will trust a stranger more than they trust their caregiver. Hear me when I say that again. I'm going to say it one more time. It's dangerous when a child will trust a stranger quicker than they will a caregiver. But that just didn't happen overnight. That happened over time. Why? Because when that child needed that parent, that parent was emotionally unavailable. And this happens a lot of time when babies raising babies, or when the father of somebody feels like he has to be the hard one or the strong one in the family, and he can't show emotion and all those types of things. And we start to avoid, and we leave these child. I used to always say, it's dangerous to leave a child to their own devices. I think I wrote about it in my book, but one of my punishments when I was a child, my stepmother, she did the best she could raising me as a child. I love her to death. I saw her this weekend, but she did the best she could. But if I messed up on a grade, she knew that grade was going to be on my report card for 9 weeks. So she would punish me sometimes by making me stay in my room for 9 weeks. No TV, no radio, just my books, bed, just to study. But it's dangerous. I think that's part of the reason sometimes I think like I think now. I'm not going to say I'm crazy, but I definitely think different. But you leave a child to his own devices, you don't know what they're going to think. One thing I encourage my children to do in our house, definitely in our house, is I wanted them to talk. And I would tell them, get it wrong at home. Because if you get it wrong at home, then I can correct you now. And at the same time, we were establishing thought patterns, right? We were establishing patterns, as we talked about earlier about the attachment styles having certain patterns. We started developing patterns that would show up in the way they processed, even when they weren't at home, right? But someone who has developed an avoidant attachment, they might have been told to be quiet all the time. They might have been spoken for instead of someone letting them speak. Now, when my children were young, when they were a certain age, I didn't let you talk to them. You didn't have any business talking to my child. You talk to me. I'm the daddy. You don't talk to my child because I just didn't play. You can say hello. You can say hi, but beyond that. One time Trey, I paid $70 a week for Trey to go to hitting lessons. And Trey had I'm talking about baseball. He had a very technical way, pro style of hitting, the way the coach was teaching him. And so some people didn't understand what we were working on. And so they would see him maybe have a trouble in a game, but I wasn't worried about a game. I was worried about the long run. It got him through college and a master's degree. But they would see something, they would want to correct it. And I'd be like, no, we pay for that. I don't need you talking to him. And Trey would just look at me. Trey didn't say anything to them. And then as he got older, if they did it, he had filtered hearing. He'd be like, Dad, I don't need to pay that no attention. And so, but that was through me reassuring him and him understanding certain aspects, of our relationship. But those that operate with the avoidant, attachment issue, those individuals didn't have that person to go to. They had to figure it out on themselves. Probably started smoking cigarettes. I'm joking at this part, but probably started smoking cigarettes at 12. I started hanging out with the fellas on the corner or the crowd up the street because they were looking for love in all the. I'm singing Willie Nelson, but they were looking for love, and they were looking for the love that they couldn't find at home. And so over time, they develop the avoidant attachment syndrome or the avoidant attachment. And let's look at some of their characteristics. Those with the avoidant attachment, they might not be willing or able to share thoughts and feelings with others, and may even have problems with intimacy. Did y'all hear that? You don't know who you're dealing with. You're complaining about, and it's a legitimate complaint because you're entitled to allow whomever it is you choose to be in your life. It's your life. You deserve that. You can let whoever, but you don't understand what baggage or skeletons a person brings with them, because all we see is their now, and we don't know anything about their history. Nothing whatsoever. So those that have the anxious attachment, they might not be willing or able to share thoughts and feelings with others, and may even have problems with intimacy. Secondly, they might suffer from commitment phobia. They don't know how to commit. And everything they committed to in the past might have broken them or disappointed them or let them down. Who knows? They might not invest as much emotion in a relationship as others. And guess what the sad part about it is? they tend not to be as disappointed when the relationship ends. Guess what? Guess why? Because they expected the relationship to end. They were expecting at any moment that the floor was gonna fall out, and I knew it was coming. I knew it was too good to be true. Has anybody ever been there? That's why they try to avoid certain things in the relationship. But this didn't start when they were 6. I mean, this didn't just start when they were 6. They felt it at 16. And because they didn't deal with it, they felt it at 26. And because they still didn't deal with it, they felt it at 36. And like Miss Milton said, it lingers for decades because of what Nicole and Miss Milton said earlier, because we're not aware of the way we attach to those. We just go in willy-nilly. We just go in, and that's shaping. So you, as parents, as grandparents, as caregivers, as we need to be conscious of how we deal with our children. My baby, man, please, that child there, I remember, man, every morning for school, she was late. I mean, late, trying to get stuff together. Late. I'm, hurry up. Come on, we got to go. Hurry up. Get in the car. I'm going 65 and a 35 trying to get up the road to catch the bus, right? But then after a while, I'm seeing her coming downstairs because it's pressure, because I have a deep voice, and, you know, it's kind of stentorious at times, right? And it can be intimidating, and at a certain point, it can become monotonous. And probably like Charlie Brown's teacher, like womp, 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 womp. And she's coming downstairs and she's got tears in her eyes because I'm rushing her and I'm putting pressure on her and I expected her to go to school like that. I thank God that now, because she lives with me now, I thank God we have the relationship now where she'll come to me and we'll talk. And the other day, I'll share certain things with her because she's a little different, you know. With that one, you got to almost make her believe certain things are her idea. Because if you make a suggestion, y'all have any children like that? You got to almost make them think it's their idea, and that's, you know. But unless you don't want to change your parenting style, now if you want to keep your parenting style how you did it because you like my way or the highway, or you tough like that, however you do it. I mean, if that's how you did it, that's fine. I'm a little more creative than that. Because I'm not spanking you because I ain't gonna hit nobody I love. I'm just not doing it. I didn't really do much spanking growing up, them growing up, but I was creative. So I realized that she would rebel when you tried to make suggestions. Hell, she got it from her daddy. I don't like people telling me what to do. So she got it honest. It ain't like she just picked that up off the blue. So I'm a little smarter than she is, right? You know, I've been around a little bit longer. So what I figured out to do was I figured out how to make her think what I wanted done or what I felt like she needed to do. I would make her think it was her idea. I would sell her the scenario, you know, over and over again, or, you know, paint a picture of with words, what I thought the outcome should look like. And I would do that. And when I did that with her, there would be times, you know, where then she might not catch it right then, but an hour later, 2 hours later, a week later, you know, she'll come back again. And I'm sitting in the house here, and she's steady looking at these boxes come in the house, and boxes, you know, Amazon. She got a little job. She can buy what she want to buy. I'm not going to charge her any bills. But she's like, Dad, I'm buying some shelves to do this. And I'm doing this because I want to get organized. I want to do this because you told me that if I want to go to the next level, then I'm going to have to step up. And I say, and I'm just sitting there, you know, I mean, I couldn't show it on the outside. I'm Daddy. I got to be a little tough. But on the inside, I'm smiling, man. I'm like, yeah, she gets it. She's starting to get it. She's starting to get it. She's starting to get it. But I had to create that atmosphere. I could have lost her if I would have kept yelling. I could have lost her if I didn't change my parenting style. Because I need the relationship. And I don't even only need the relationship with me, but because she's a physical representation of me in the world because she has my last name. She's my child. As she goes out and becomes a wife one day or whatever she decides to do, a cheerleading coach, whatever she does, she still represents me because she carries my last name. And I love it whenever something's wrong, I'm her first phone call. Do your children and a child with an avoidant attachment, their parent might not be their first phone call. They've been told all their lives how to figure it out. And I get it. I'm with you. I feel you. I want my children to figure it out too. But here it is. If I'm going to tell my children to figure it out, I'm going to at least give them a formula. That's pretty good, Jay. Yeah. Hold on. Let me get one of them. Hold on real quick. If I'm going to tell my children to figure it out, then the least I can do for my children is provide a formula.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
All right, that's good. I hadn't done that all night, so I wanted to get one of those in. Yeah, if I'm going to tell my children to figure it out, and the sad reality is the reason why we can't tell our children to figure it out because we can't figure it out because we're too creative. We're not very creative ourselves. If you do all your fishing in Walmart, then that means someone has not taught you how to fish. That's a metaphor for those that might not understand that. So that means someone has given you a fish all your life. So that's what you're dependent on, somebody giving you something. But if you've been taught how to fish because you've been given a formula to figure things out. Trey was, I got to think now, hold 2001. Yeah, 2001. No, 2004. 2004. Trey was 6. And I was talking to a guy named Sydney at a dealership I was working at. And Sydney cool cat from New Orleans. But I told him I was teaching Trey how to think. Teaching him how to think. How can you teach him how to think? I was like, that's a dumb question. But anyway, I said I put him in scenarios where he has to think. And then I ask a simple question. I say, what were you thinking? That's simple. Yeah. Well, now that's one way. Now that's one way. Emmanuel, I like that. I will give you a chance. I'm not going to give you a chance to create your own formula. I'm gonna give you a foundational formula. Now you can add some different seasonings as you get older, right? Grandmama might teach somebody how to make a pound cake. And you might use pure cane sugar now, but as you get older, you might want to try a different kind of sugar. Okay, that's fine. But we're going to start with this foundation. So I'm going to give them a chance after they've learned something to start. Think about it. If you want to get the measurement of a circle, you can't change the formula. I mean, it is what it is. What is it? A equals, pi equals whatever, pi squared, whatever. I forget. What is it? Pi equals. Y'all know what it is. But you got to start in the circle. Start in the center of the circle. That's the only formula that's going to give you the proper measurement. Now, I agree with you, Emmanuel, in principle, but it has to start with a foundation. That's where I'm at. Now, as they get older, they can change the formula. I remember one time my parents had came to Atlanta for Trey's birthday. I'll be telling on myself. And I had to tell them at one point, well, this is my house. No disrespect. No disrespect. Now, what we did in your house, something, and like, for instance, when growing up, my mother made scrambled eggs with onions in those. I hated onion in my eggs. And I just didn't understand why she kept putting onions in the freaking eggs. I hated onions in my eggs. But when I got older and I started making eggs for my family, guess what I didn't do? Didn't put onions in them. And it was okay. So my mom gave me her formula, and that was fine. But certain things I just won't eat because I didn't like it when I was a child. I can't eat shrimp because I'm allergic to it. And we didn't know that at first, but my people were one that believe you eat all the food on your plate. So I would eat all my food, but I'd throw up every time. Turned out I was allergic to shrimp. I don't like green bean casserole. Had to eat it when I was little. Hate it. Onions in my eggs. Hated it. So with all that being said, in my house, I didn't do those things, right? But they were part of my foundation nonetheless. They were still a part of my foundation. All right, so one more attachment style. We've already talked about 3. We've talked about the secure attachment style. We've talked about the anxious and ambivalent attachment style. We've also talked about the avoidant attachment style. But then there is another one, and I forgot to make a overlay, but that's fine. There's the disorganized attachment style. There's the disorganized attachment style. Now, with the disorganized attachment style, hold on a minute, I don't want that yet. The caregiver typically on this person, and we're talking about how we attach in relationships as adults, how we were affected as children. All right. If you want to go back and get the notes on this, go back and watch the show again. But those with disorganized attachment styles, their caregiver was probably abusive. Whether it was verbal abuse, whether it was physical abuse, the caregiver usually showed atypical behavior. A child with a disorganized attachment style might feel both fear and comfort towards a caregiver. And that can be confusing for a child because this child doesn't know what to expect from day to day. They don't know if they're going to feel love right now or if they're going to loathe being in this person's presence because that person might have been drinking, might have had a bad day, and that child is the outlet for that caregiver. A caregiver can't stand the crying, so shut up, hush, all that kind of stuff. All that yelling and all that kind of stuff. But then the next minute, oh, this is my baby. Oh, come on, baby. Da da da. Because you're in a good mood now, and that caregiver's in a good mood now. So, but how is this for the child? It's confusing for the child because the child doesn't know how to respond to their parent. And so, what this is called is a disorganized attachment. Disorganized attachments can lead to difficulties in mental health and behavior. If you look at the prison population, most or a lot of people in the prison population suffer they're either dealt with drugs or they suffer from some type of mental illness. There's something mental going on in that with that individual. And so a lot of them had disorganized attachment. A disorganized attachment style is a mixture of behaviors. It's a mixture of behaviors. They don't know what to feel. They feel confused. They feel loved. They feel comforted. They feel fear. And they can feel all of that from the same person. And I'm not talking about the type of fear. There's a fear in the Greek that means the terminology in the Greek that means respect. That's not the fear I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fear that brings about a phobia. The fear that makes me not want to be in your presence. The fear like of watching. Some of y'all are weird because y'all like to watch scary movies. I can't watch them because I'm too clairvoyant and I might go to bed dreaming about that kind of stuff. So I got to be careful with that. I'm almost finished. Let me finish up these last little points, then I'm done. But a person with a disorganized attachment style, that person is a person with this attachment style might be clingy at one time and emotionally distant at another time. This is how it shows up in adulthood. Sometimes they feel like a nut, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they feel like being bothered. Sometimes they don't feel like being bothered. That's someone with a disorganized attachment style. It's typically a response to parents or caregivers who may have been, I said this earlier, may have been abusive or neglectful. When a person has a disorganized attachment syndrome or a disorganized attachment style, that person's brain can't figure out a good strategy. With secure attachment, their brain is comfortable. They know that's who I'm going to. That's my go-to. That person loves me. That person's concerned about me. That person is going to be there when I need them when the going gets rough. I've developed a relationship with that individual. That's someone who has a secure attachment. But someone with a disorganized attachment, nope. And when it shows up in adulthood, you got someone that sometimes they just want to always be in your presence, all under you, but the next minute they don't want to. That's because that person was neglected as a child. And the way they act out is by hey, before you get me, let me get you. Before you hurt me, let me hurt you. Hurt people. Yeah. These are all different types of attachment styles. All of these are different types of attachment styles. And as I said earlier, attachment styles are, number one, they're patterns. Number two, they can be based on nonverbal communication. Number two, they vary in security, which I showed you the 4 different attachment styles: a secure attachment style, the anxious or ambivalent attachment, the avoidant attachment, and then I showed you the disorganized attachment. But the final thing about attachment styles, and here it is, and I need you all to hear me on this one, and this is where I want to really pitch a tent for our conversation, especially if you all want to call in or share something in the chat. Attachment styles, they're not concrete. They can change. A person can be avoidant now, but get in a good enough relationship and become so secure and begin to trust this individual, and then they can start to feel secure. So don't get so caught up into believing that a person is so concretized that they can't change, because they can. Attachment styles are largely shaped by the infant caregiver connection, but they can change in response to how close friends and partners, romantic partners, treat a person in adulthood. Remember, it's called attachment theory. All right? A theory for a reason. How we act under certain circumstances does not define the rest of our lives and all future relationships. Thank you. If a person does the work, but that requires that you be aware, that you see the deficiencies. And once you recognize the deficiencies, you do the work. Hear me. Old behaviors can be unlearned and replaced with new ones. And even a string of unsuccessful relationships doesn't mean you have to have an insecure. Doesn't mean you have an insecure attachment style. All it may take, here it is the right person and the right relationship to overturn everything you think you knew about your connection and attachment to others. One person can come in and change everything. One person. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I'll be honest, I struggled in how I related in relationships. And now in therapy, I'm seeing why. Because there were some things that I might have been deficient when I was growing up. And because of that, it shows up in my adult relationships. And you meet the right person. And I ain't gonna lie, I met somebody that opened it up, made me see it. I mean, reflection. I was like, oh, wow, was I that bad? Oh, my God. And it caused me to want to change. But it took somebody coming into my life to unlock that was there to get, because I took the test. And those that have not taken the quiz, go take it. But I took the quiz, and the mind said I was secure. It said I was secure. It did. But it required, like I said, but there were some things that were showing up in my adult relationships. I had somebody tell me my love hurts one time. And when they told me that, it was like, ugh, am I that bad? Am I that bad? So, but I looked in the mirror, and looking in the mirror, I saw what I needed to do. So if you are seeking to have substantive relationships, even if you have been divorced, have never been married, been in failed relationships, before you make an attempt to get into a fruitful relationship, I think it's a good idea to really spend time in that mirror and not only look at what people did to you, but look at what you might have done and what you could have possibly done differently. And if you had done things differently, would it have produced a different outcome? That's part of maturity. I mean, real talk, that's just part of growing up. When we get to a certain point where we're able to really, really, really look at the man or the woman in the mirror, the person in the mirror, and say, you know what? I did have some things I needed to work on. And then you take the time to really work on those things. Then now you're a better version of yourself, and you're prepared to go into the next relationship. And you won't be somebody hurting the next person. So learn your attachment style. Are you secure? Are you anxious or ambivalent? Are you practicing avoidance? Do you have the avoidant attachment syndrome? Or was it disorganized? It's good to know. It's good to know. It's good to know. And if you learn that, all it can do is make you more aware, more conscious, and it will help you as you seek to relate. I know one thing: I don't want to hurt anybody else. I got to get this right. I'm 50. I'll be 52 in July, so I don't have much more time left. So I gotta. It was a time I was saying I was ready for a relationship, but I wasn't really ready. And then when I meet somebody and finally ready, then I messed it up. But y'all pray for me. I'm gonna try to fix it. Yeah, oh Lord. But yeah. So 3 things that you're looking for in relationships, and these three things will make you feel secure. 3 questions. Number 1, you need to make sure you're secure within yourself. Make sure you are secure within yourself. Ask yourself a question. Do you deserve love? And once you ask yourself that question, do you deserve love? Once that you determine that answer to that question is yes, then you're in the process or on the path to feeling secure within a relationship. Second thing you need to determine if you're going to feel secure with a relationship are the people that are around you, can they be trusted? Can they be trusted with your needs? Can you trust them with your heart? Will they consistently show up? And if you find people like that, then you can say you're secure within your relationship. Third thing is how you view your attachment or your connection to others. In other words, the wire, Miss Milton, that connects you with your partner or whoever it is in any type of relationship, is that wire stable? Is there any lacks in the cord? Is there a rip in like it could potentially break? If the person that you're connected to, that attachment or that connection, are they necessary? And if they are necessary, if they're not necessary, are they a threat to your sense of self? Do they make you feel valued? And if they don't make you feel valued, then you probably don't have a very secure relationship. But if they do make you feel valued, And here it is. If you've expressed to them that you need to feel valued, and they make attempts to try to make you feel valued, or they ask questions or whatever, you have to determine whether or not you're secure within that relationship, right? So that's what we got to figure out, man. And that's what I'm learning. I'm learning that if I want to be a better version of myself, before I can go forward, you know what the reality is? I'm gonna have to go backwards. Sometimes it requires that we go back. Because to understand where you are, you have to understand where you came from. And so many of us have become so detached, disassociated from where we came from, that we have just kind of created an alter ego where we are. And anybody can be who they need to be in the moment. But if you're alone by yourself, alone with you and your thoughts, that alter ego that you created, you just got to be the real you has to show up, not the representative. I'm trying to be healthy. I'm trying to be a better version of myself. Listen, Student Nation, I appreciate you all for jumping on with me tonight. Wanted to, like I said, discuss this whole subject of attachment styles. And what we did, for those that missed it, was we went back and looked in our childhood, our infancy, to see how we related with our caregivers and see how that might be affecting us even in our adulthood. Are we secure? Are we anxious or ambivalent? Are we avoidant? Or are we disorganized? Think about it. Go take that attachment style quiz on my page and let me know what your outcome was, right? All right, so it's been fun. I've been on for almost an hour and a half. Been fun. Thank you, Viola. You always encourage me. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Wilson, for all you contributed tonight. Emmanuel, Charlotte, all of you all. I really do. And if you all want to support the platform, let me put the cash app up. I got you. Of course, you never know, somebody might want to be a blessing tonight. Let's put the cash app up before I say what I'm about to say. Where is it? Oh, there it is. All right. Cash app right there. All right. So as I say in closing, the world is changing. My question to you is, why do you remain the same? Y'all do me a favor. Have a good night. Y'all got to come on here with me. I get tired of talking to y'all. I like y'all to talk back. All right. Intellectual Stew, we out. Catch y'all next week.
Intellectual Stew.